Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy and privileged to be a moderator on this webinar, in particular as we are speaking on a topic that is very close to my heart. My name is Nomsa Mbekhe. I'm a partner at Weber Wenzel, and I sit on the SIM ESG committee and also on the Gender Alliance Committee, subcommittee. Well, in today's rapidly evolving corporate landscape, the ascendance of female leadership brings forth a multifaceted advantage, especially in the context of the increasingly prominence of ESG considerations. Women leaders often possess a unique blend of attributes commonly associated with the feminine energy, which can significantly contribute to long-term corporate sustainability and shareholder value. With me in this webinar, today we've got three panelists who will be discussing leadership beyond boundaries. And I think I will introduce them all at first and then start asking questions, bring them on one by one thereafter. First, we have Kollega Mzondegi, who is such an accomplished woman whose passion for transformation all around is evident in the board position she holds. She certainly leads by example, serving in the boards of Thungela Resources and chairing the audit committee at Thungela Resources. She previously served in the Telkom boards through its turbulent and transformative years. She has also been recently appointed to serve in the board of the South African Reserve Bank. Second is Pralisha Singh, a partner at Weber Wenzel, who serves as a member of the board at Weber Wenzel, as well as sitting on this ESG steering committee. She's an accomplished public and administrative justice lawyer and is the head of the public law practice at Weber Wenzel and is the vice president of the Administrative Justice Association of South Africa. She was placed third at the Gender Mainstream Awards in 2021 in the category of positive role model. Last but not in any way least is Mark Mendera, who is a Group Chief Technical Officer at Implants. Mark is an accomplished mining engineer and has led mining companies at operations at the executive and director level. Mark's contribution in the mining sector extends beyond the corporate sector. He has over 6 years served in the board of Mine Health and Safety Council of South Africa. So now moving on to the panelists, we shall start with Kollega. And hi, Kollega.
Hi, Nomsa. Good morning, listeners.
And Kollega, I just want to sort of ask you a couple of questions and give you time to respond. The first questions are, what do you see as some of the key experiences and challenges you faced as a woman in a leadership role? And how have they shaped your approach to leadership? And in addition to that, what role do mentorship and sponsorship play in supporting the career advancement of women in leadership roles? And how have they impacted your professional journey?
Sorry, Nomsa, can I correct you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. The questions that I got, I don't know if you mixed them up a little bit. It's leadership roles, unique decision-making process and problem solving. Are we on the same page with the questions that were assigned to me?
That is absolutely fine.
Okay.
My mistake.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So let me ask the questions again.
Yeah.
What do you what do you think women in leadership roles contribute uniquely to decision-making process and problem solving within teams and organization? And research suggests that diverse leadership teams lead to better business outcomes. How do you believe diversity in leadership, particularly with regards to gender impacts organizational structure and performance?
Yeah, thank you, Nomsa. First of all, allow me to agitate a little bit. I'll put up some slides, just to show the lay of the land regarding women. That's why I really would like to agitate before I answer your questions. When my niece turned around 5 years ago, I think she was 15 or so years ago, she saw the Financial Mail on my coffee table and she asked, why is it men only? I mean, if you look at this slide, she's really questioning life. And I'm proud to say that at age 12, in July 1977, somehow my mother brought up this certificate where I was asking about great questions of life. And I guess it's the traveling issues now that we are trying to address. Here we have a magazine about business, a topic that impacts everyday lives, yet it seems to be sending a subtle message that it's a man's world. This is a wake-up call for our entire value system. In my mind, a patriarchal system. A friend of mine who helped me with my presentation was a bit hesitant for me to say patriarchy, but we need to name things for what they are. Patriarchy is a kind of a social engineering project where men are often seen as the default for big paid decisions. May I emphasize paid decisions? But this is not natural. This is an ingrained bias against women. It runs deep and it holds women back and limits their potential. There is no biological reason that makes men inherently better with business. It's a learned behavior, a product of our social conditioning. There is no biological reason that they should be inherently better at business. This is exactly why initiatives like the UN Sustainable Development Goals on gender intentionally puts this in the forefront. So it's crucial for the world to not limit women's opportunity just because of gender. This suggests the biggest problem might not be about women getting promoted once they are already working. The real issue is that many women aren't even getting a chance to start their careers because of these outdated ideas. South Africa's whole social system, at home and work, just think about it. Who usually cares for the children, does the dishes, favors men? This isn't fair. It hurts women, it hurts everybody in society. If you look at the statistics, this is from the UN about the UN gender progress. You can see the green is where we are making progress. The yellow is where we're just about partially making moderate progress. So if you just look at the green and red, you can see that we are found wanting. So we need to be blunt. Women don't have to jump through hoops to prove themselves. When everybody has an equal shot, society and business actually do better. It's just common sense. So let's stop making women fight an uphill battle and open doors for them to succeed. However, I will get to your questions. It's a fact. We women bring a different perspective. We hold up the sky, half of the sky, if not more. We run families, and that skill is underplayed because it's not paid. If women's unpaid work were assigned a monetary value, research shows that it would exceed up to 40% of GDP. Take, for instance, the matriarch in the village. A common phenomenon in South Africa, grandmother looking after children, grandchildren, everybody. She uses her pension to cater for the collective well-being, not only of the family, but it contributes to the wider society. I mean, if you look at the VBS scandal, the bank, you'll find that mostly it was financing women who are selling a product informally. So you can imagine the impact on society in those regions. I mean, if you go to Limpopo, you look at the houses, and probably most of them were built also using VBS. And who are the culprits in terms of complicity in the VBS scandal? I think you will find that women are in the majority. Whenever women are in the workplace, apologies. When we are in the workplace, people are our team. It's no coincidence that when families break up, women take up the burden, making sure children are fed and nurtured. So we bring this into the workplace. The statistics in South Africa, like I've alluded regarding, and then I think I was at this, please also alert me on time, because I could be over, I don't want to go over too much.
I'll give you a few more minutes.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, as I said, if we grow up in families that are not healthy, we bring in microaggression into the workplace. It makes it harder for people from different disadvantaged backgrounds, women, Black people, LGBT community, to learn in a healthy way, solve problems, and feel good at work. But the good news is that there's a way to fight this. The Harvard article answers this as the positive good news is about micro-validation. This means simply acknowledging and respecting somebody's experiences and contribution. It's a small act that can make a difference to somebody. As you know, Nomsa, when somebody acknowledges what you have contributed, it feels good and you feel more empowered to even do better. Women have empathy and emotional intelligence and are not inclined to be driven by ego. They are able to discern what's exactly going on, which may not be obvious. Men tend to play games because they are ego-driven. Some men, let me qualify that, driven by the hunter complex, of go, 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 go. For an example, an employee could be going through some difficult time and not share it. It impacts on their performance when not addressed. Most of the time, it will be a woman who sets them aside and ask if they're okay. What some would refer cynically as kumbaya. This cynicism comes from fear rather than addressing the problem. We need to name the problem. Microsoft CEO alluded to EQ as a requirement for today's leader. We are not in the industrial age, but we are in the fourth industrial revolution, which needs EQ, which comes naturally with women, critical and creative thinking. In the households, think about it. We need to be creative about how we use our money. So AI is upon us, and these skills are in demand. And I'm glad to say at Tungela Resources, the CEO, July Ndlovu, who is quite a self-aware person, shared that when he is challenged with a matter that needs judgment, he seeks counsels from his female PA. As leaders, we have a duty to take out the best in people. I don't know how I'm doing with
I
time.
think, yeah, no time, yeah.
Yeah,
If you could
okay.
wrap it.
How am I doing with time?
Yeah, no, we are running out of time. Have you
Okay,
just got
all
1
right.
minute?
Yeah, all right. Okay, I mean, as you can see on this shows that the world gender population, we have give and take the same men and women. People always say we have more men, but it's give and take. If you can see, I think here it's which countries is this? In East, I mean, in the Middle East, you have 46% women. In other countries, Russia, you have more men. So it's not like we have more men in other countries, and it's such a big. But when you look at the proportion of women and work in education and employment, if you see this in sub-Sahara, this is women who are in employment or in education. The gap is quite big. And then if you go to Australia, you will see that the gap is smaller, which means yeah. So think about it. It's probably Australia is less patriarchal. It it takes its gender equity seriously. Australia is an advanced, progressive economy, so you do the math. And in South Africa, only 53% of women participate in the labor force. So if they're taking care of families, you can imagine the impact that this has. Yeah. So, I mean, I can answer some of the questions in the interest of time through the question session.
Yeah, I think if we share if you allow us to share your presentation, then any questions that we get from there, we can post to you and respond accordingly.
Okay.
Now moving on.
Yeah. Just before I go, because I need to mention this number, it is estimated that closing the gender gap could give the global economy a $7 trillion boost.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Kollega. And then I'll just move on now to Prelisha. And Prelisha, welcome. Welcome to the webinar. And thank you very much for coming on board. And the questions that I want to ask you are the ones that I originally posed to Kollega, but erroneously. What are the key experiences or challenges you faced as a woman in the leadership role, and how have they shaped your approach to leadership?
Great. No, thanks, Nomsa, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be and to join this webinar this afternoon. Unlike Kollega, who has overachieved us, I do not have a presentation, and I just wish to have more of a fluid discussion with Nomsa in relation to these questions. So when preparing for this webinar, I thought of the challenges first. Interestingly, that's where I went to. And I narrowed it or categorized my challenges as a female leader into two buckets. I call them my psychological challenges and my physiological challenges. I'll talk first to my physiological challenges. As you can see, and I hope I'm almost 40, and I hope I can say this for a few years more, I am a younger leader. I am a brown female leader, and I am a smaller person. You can't see me on the webinar. I'm not very tall. And I call these my physiological challenges as a leader, because I present in a certain way. And of course, entering into the boardroom context, I'm often the only person who looks the way I do. And I found that to be the first and more significant challenge as a female leader. And it actually then informed what I would call my psychological challenges as a female leader. The immediate one would be, and we've read, copious amounts of literature in this, the imposter syndrome. Why am I here? Should I be here? Am I rightfully here? Even though in most of the leadership positions I have, I was selected or elected. And that fed most glaringly into figuring out who I am as a leader and what it means for me to lead. And so I think when I say that those physiological and psychological challenges fed in quite squarely into how I devised my leadership style. My leadership one as a brown female, a younger female, a smaller female, and in the more recent years, a mother leader as well. I recently had a discussion with Geraldine Gallagher. She wrote a very interesting book, and I love the title. It says, Coaching Women, Changing the System, Not the Person. It says, fix the system, don't fix the woman. And I took those two challenges and I fed it into devising my leadership style. In the book, she talks about this clear, bright line divide between the agentic and the communal leadership styles. And agentic is more associated with men. That's imposing, domineering style of leadership. And the communal style being the woman, and Kollega rightfully said the kumbaya style. And I thought actually I wanted to steal from both aspects of it, because I think as a female leader, we need to be quite agile. Different scenarios will require differences from us. And I do believe that it requires us to code switch in different contexts. And I think those challenges then shaped my agentic communal leadership style, which is just me having to take and play to my various strengths in determining who I am. But it was quite interesting because it's devised quite a unique leadership style. And I think one that evolving corporate culture is going to require of female leaders and of leaders more generally. Because I think we're very focused here on female leadership as a distinct notion, but I think it is leadership styles more generally and across the genders that would need to adjust, I think, to the evolving corporate culture and evolving society with increasingly different and younger generations to come. That's my response to the first question.
Interesting. The next question I wanted to ask you was, what role do mentorship and sponsorship play in supporting the career advancement of women in leadership roles? And how have they impacted your own professional journey?
When I looked at that question and in preparing, I wrote one word next to it. It means everything. I think mentorship and coaching of young females is critical to them, one, staying in the workforce and then continuing on a leadership journey. We've got quite a specific program here at Webber Wentzel through our gender strategy working group, because we had tracked for almost a decade now critical points in the journey of a female post-university, where more females come out of university with a law degree than males and enter into our candidate attorney program. And you just see that come the end of the journey towards senior partnership and leadership, the attrition rate is significant, principally amongst females and females of color as well. And so we needed to isolate what that meant in different points in their career. And we saw that they actually needed quite deliberate and interventions and champions, sponsors, mentors. I do again believe that that's required for both genders in different ways. And what is needed is different for each gender, and especially for young women to stay in leadership roles. Particularly, you need a mentor who's there to support and champion for you in the workplace and in the specific journey you have towards leadership. Because leadership is not only and does not only happen in senior structures. This is something we've actually had to absorb. Leadership has to happen actually at each and every level, because in those groupings, they need seniors who take up the cudgels. They need parties who represent them in broader forums. So we found that having deliberate programs of mentorship, sponsorship, and coaching at different levels and stages and ages of their career was critical. It helped them actually navigate the environment in different ways, navigate the challenges of work and later on parenting, should that come into their lives, and then to ensure that they then see, and that's important when I said what I said in the beginning about my physiological and psychological challenges, see leaders, female leaders who are there, who are thriving, who are supporting, who are mentoring. Because, you know, I hadn't indicated in the first response, the first question, one of the key experiences you'd asked is seeing the type of leader I didn't want to be and the type of female leader I didn't want to be. And that came from my looking and discerning the agentic and communal styles that some of the females of our prior generations, and believe me, I give huge kudos because they opened the door for a lot of us to come through, had to just describe and just become leaders of the male-oriented style. It was required of them. It was the only way. And I think these trailblazers have allowed us the opportunity to come in, changing the styles, because it actually doesn't sit well with everyone and all personalities. And then you think you can only be a leader if you are like that. And what I've seen in the mentorship and the coaching programs is you see different types of leaders, you see different types of people, and you see their journeys from which they hopefully can take and grow into the organization as leaders. So as I started, it is everything for the female leadership journey.
Yeah, no, I get the feeling that the prior leaders, the ones we stand on their shoulders, needed that masculine energy to push through the ceiling, right? And create the crack for us to go in. Now, as we're going through the ceiling, we can then call on our, you know, the feminine energy, I call it, because male and female have it, because I think the era we're in right now requires us to actually, you know, dig into both types of energies that we have, the masculine and the feminine side, both for male and for the men and for the women. So I find that that's such an interesting way of action. And going back to what you were saying, what I found very attractive was some of the sort of sponsorship, and maybe you can briefly talk about that, even from a maternity, when you're on maternity and returning back from maternity, there is kind of a sort of role model or body system or mentorship that actually happens, because I think that's a very critical part of a woman when she comes back from maternity. Can you just speak just 1 minute about that?
I'm very happy to speak about that. I speak about it widely here. So Weber's actually we decided to be quite deliberate with we now call it the parenting transition program. And it's a recognition of parents, you know, not only maternity, because there was this idea of only the woman would have evolved when becoming a parent and returning to the workforce, but actually there's active and participatory fathers who also have changed fundamentally. And what we saw were the points at which there were huge attrition, and then we tried to diagnose with a service provider who are experts in this field, why. And we saw that certain parents needed support prior to their exit, during the exit, and on returning. And it required sessions both with the parent-to-be as well as the line manager of the parent, because there would be that symbiosis that needed for the two to understand what all the person was going through. And it required quite a robust discussion with both, because the system, and I think that's one of the frustrations I have, I think the juniors look to me and say, you haven't changed the system enough for us in these years. And, you know, as you spoke about the older guard, they would look at us and think they've changed the system significantly. And as I now become the older guard, I think we've changed it significantly, but the younger ones just think, no, we haven't done enough. But it was a recognition that, well, the system has evolved quite significantly, but not at that optimal level we would all like. And so it requires the sensitizing of the parent who's going out and the line manager when they return as to what all both parties are going through, expectations, changes in attitude, changes in work ability. We have even gone so far as having rooms for breastfeeding mothers who wish to continue manually pumping during the return to work, because that was another thing that we saw as an evolution insofar as supporting that return, because already there was so much that the mother was going through. So we've put in interventions on a formal program, also sensitizing line manager and the parent to the transition. It's a huge transition. I remember the day I left this building to go on maternity leave, and I even said to myself, I'm not going to return to this building the same person. And true to form, I really did not. But also then looking at practicalities and things we could practically do to assist. For example, pumping rooms, as well as you said, a buddy system of sort, having people in your team and outside your team to speak to, because it's a massive mental, physical transition that you go through.
Thanks. That's really, really interesting. I don't know if there's any questions on, I don't see any on the chat. So maybe I will then move along to Mark. Hi, Mark.
Good afternoon.
And how are you today?
No, I'm good, and you?
I'm very well, thank you. Mark, we obviously need men as our, advocates in terms of female leadership. Now, the question I just want to ask you is that how can men use their privilege and influence to support initiatives aimed at promoting gender diversity and equity in leadership?
No, thank you. I think it's an important point that you opened up with. So you obviously need men in this transition. So yeah, so by definition, if there is this age-old gender biased, then we must realize that the power and authority does lie with the men. And if you want to change that, you have to change that basis that is with men. It's not with women. So by definition, it's the men that must change. And well, the women too, and they have to feed into the gaps or the opportunities that are created. So I think we must realize that and then engage men more on this issue. But just to answer your question specifically, I mean, how can men use that privilege? I think some men are in denial that they have the privilege in the first place. And I think when you sit back and think, you have to realize that you do have this position of power that you need to utilize to change the status quo. Now, if you don't realize that you actually do have that power and authority, then you won't see a reason to deploy it. You won't actually see a need to change it, never mind a reason to deploy it to change it. So I think step one in this discussion is men need to recognize that there are challenges about how the power is distributed in society, specifically in the workplace, and even more specifically in the mining workplace. So once we put that on the agenda, made it very clear that this needs to change, and the men are the ones that have that power that must lead that change, actually. Now, I was listening to Pralisha's opening words. I mean, this is the SIMM, so we can speak clearly. This is the South African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy. So I have one advantage. I'm a mining engineer, and she's a lawyer. Maybe I hope it gives me an advantage in the mining industry. So, but listening to her saying these are her challenges, and as she's saying, well, she's a female. Well, I'm a male. I don't have that challenge. If she views it as a challenge, she's a woman of color. I don't know, pink is also a color, but I'm a white male. She says she's young. Be careful, that will change very quickly before you know it. I'm not, I'm mature, meaning I'm experienced, very experienced in the mining industry. She mentioned she's short and smaller. Well, I'm not. Her strength comes into, I'm not weak, but by no means. So everything she mentioned as a challenge, every single element, I don't have that. In fact, I have the opposite. I'm taller, fitter, stronger, white, male, mature, experienced, and I'm a mining engineer in the mining industry. Of course, I have the advantages now. So I think men have to understand that. Now, how do I see that this cannot go on? It should not go on. I'm missing out on everything that short lawyers have to offer, short female lawyers have to offer, and I need to come to terms and address that. So I think without understanding that, we're not going to move forward, hey? And then recognizing that there's value in society. It's not only equitable and right thing to do, there's actually value in having a society that can, get everyone's input into the challenges that face us.
Yeah,
So I think that.
No, sorry, go ahead.
So I think with that, you start with, so what do? You must be a vocal advocate for it. You must mentor and sponsor. Well, the vocal advocate, you must speak up when you see something that's not right. You must go around and support the policies and practices that promote equity. Even if the policies and standards and practices are there in the background, if they don't hit the ground, they won't change things. It's not good enough that we just look at executives or boards. You actually have to change the whole process. Encourage equitable participation. You must lead by example. People must see what you stand for, and then it'll filter down. If they can't see it, it won't get followed. Support women's networks and initiatives like this. How many men have dialed in today just to get a different perspective? Challenge traditional norms. Leverage your network to change the status quo. Because I'm a couple of years older than Pralisha, I've just been at it a lot longer, and I therefore have a bigger and stronger and more mature network, maybe. I need to leverage that network to change it. And then, because there are so few women in these positions of power, you need to amplify the voices of those women that are there to make the change in our industry. So the one or two women that do perhaps work underground in our mines, we need to make sure that their voices are not drowned out by the thousands of men that work there. So you have to amplify the woman's voice and opinion to move it up. And I think, if you actively engage on these actions, men will be able to play a significant role in moving forward here.
Yeah, great. Mark, my pet peeve about, sometimes when we go into these different committees or different rooms is that when it comes to topics like, for instance, gender-based violence, right? Women end up being the one expected to take these forward. And I'm saying, where are the men? I mean, men can listen to other men better than they can listen to other women. So it's great that we have male advocates of some of these issues that women, and the more that come on board, especially in areas like gender-based violence,
Yes.
the more I think, because it's a societal issue, it's not just a mining sector issue, it's a societal issue. And men speaking to men about it, I think it's likely to be more effective than us preaching to the converted. Yeah. And the second question that I had for you, Mark, was there's unconscious biases, obviously, and that comes out of our cultural, cultural histories that we come from, and that hinder the advancement of women in leadership positions. So how can men play a role in recognizing and addressing some of these unconscious biases? I don't.
Yes. No, I think similar to my previous answer, it does start with the individual male. We all have unconscious and conscious bias. And if we're blind to it, many people say, no, I'm not racist, and they're very proud of it. Like they're not racist, or they have no bias to gender. And you just listen a bit and you pick up little biasness in what they do, what they say. And then you realize, but they haven't realized that they do come from a certain upbringing. And although they might not be racist or biased against women in certain areas, when they've been imprinted, it's been imprinted on them over the last 30 years of their life or 50 years of their life, this is how things are done. So they don't even know when they have a bias. And it could come in if who do I want to eat with? I want to eat with people that eat food I eat. Who do I want to have a chat over coffee with? I don't want to chat about, I don't know, to pick a very interesting topic that you two ladies were discussing, Pralisha, and you were discussing earlier on about, I don't know, baby's milk powder. I do not know anything about that. I would naturally gravitate to a man speaking about Formula One race cars and how awesome the McLaren did this weekend. Now that is something that I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm talking about something I love, the Formula One racing or the sport. But it is actually a bias that'll exclude women from having whatever we discussed just after that about why the budget's biased towards this or what we need to do tomorrow on that meeting. So one must recognize what you must reflect on your personal biases brought about by your own upbringing or by the physical environment around you. And once you've reflected on that, you educate yourself about how these will present themselves in decision making, in running your business, and engaging in the people around you and changing the status quo. So to do that, I would say, I've actually got a list. You must reflect on yourself, educate yourself, seek feedback from others, because you won't pick it up. I would need someone like you, Nomsa, to just tap me on the shoulder and say, Mark, look at the overalls you just bought for your workers. Do you think they're going to fit? I said, but I like them. They're quite nice. They do not fit us because of this and this. And it's actually just the stuff I like, I'm buying for my people, and I assume all the mine workers would like that. So seek feedback from those that do not have the same perspective you have. Champion inclusive behaviors, draw it out, ask people to challenge your mindset in certain cases, and advocate for this woman's advancement. Mentor and sponsor, I think that was raised over and over. It's a key element. Promote the equitable practices, facilitate discussions on this bias. It's a very interesting topic. This unconscious bias in many areas, it can be used for good and bad, and we need to recognize it and manage it appropriately, and then support the policy changes, and then hold yourself and others accountable. We need to hold each other accountable and feel free that someone can hold us accountable. It's not an insult if someone taps me on the shoulder and says, Mark, you're talking about Formula One again, and we actually have no interest in this story. You can talk somewhere else, but you're in a business meeting, and let's get onto the topic or educate yourself about some other things. So let's hold each other accountable to move our society forward, mature it, and advance it. If we tackle these elements, I think we'll move forward.
Yeah, I think that the issue here sometimes is that people become defensive when you tap them on the shoulder, and they then go into, oh my, you feel as the one who has been the target or the victim, that, oh my gosh, now they are upset.
Yeah.
And so I think that, it's great. I've had a friend of mine, so far as race is concerned, who said to me, she's grown up obviously from a different culture, and she says, Nomsa, there may be a subconscious bias that I have that I do not actually see. So when I say something that you feel, can you please tap me on the back? And I know you do it with a lot of love. It's for me to actually learn and sort of wipe the mirror and deal with it. And then there are friends where I know they'll be very defensive if I bring certain things up. So, or they'll joke so far as women empowerment is concerned, being the counterpart. So I think it's important for us to say that people should actually say, tap me on the back. I won't be defensive. I know you will do it in a
Yes.
very loving and sort of nurturing
The
way.
intent is good. Yeah.
The intent is good. And I think that will take us somewhere compared to us not saying anything, because we don't want to actually, we really don't want to upset people or have a, ping pong as to, no, I didn't mean this, no, you did, and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I don't know if there's any questions for.
Well, I just lost your sound. Was it only me?
Nomsa, you're on mute.
I was saying, yeah, so sorry. I was saying I don't see any questions on the chat box. So I'll move on to, we have 10 minutes to go. So I'll move on to a bonus question for all the panelists, starting with Koleka. And ask Koleka, what advice would you give to other women aspiring to leadership position, particularly in male-dominated industries or sectors?
Yeah, thanks, Nomsa. I think sometimes maybe we mustn't be so conscious about, I'm a woman, I'm different. You should say, I'm a human being, I've got a skill to contribute. Assert yourself, especially in the boardroom. Don't compete with anybody, but compete with yourself. And also be supportive of other females because they become your allies. If I can mention an example, Marilyn Monroe, beautiful, blonde, and in those days, she was an icon, the standard of beauty. Ella Fitzgerald, Black woman, jazz singer, who was singing in clubs, who couldn't get in. So what Marilyn Monroe did was to say, okay, if you allow Ella to sing in your clubs, I will sit in the front row. So you can imagine all these males will come in because they want to see Marilyn Monroe. How about that? Beauty with purpose.
That's such a great one.
You see, the Monroes have been at it for a long time, eh?
Oh, touche.
No, that's such a lovely
Yeah.
story. And Pralisha, the same question to you.
No, so in thinking about this, I have a slightly different response to Kollega insofar as I'm happy that everyone needs to accept and appreciate their difference and know that their difference has something unique to offer in the leadership journey. And part of that is so that young females can look and see leaders like them. But for me, I do this to my juniors. My team that I lead has quite a few juniors, and I tell them upfront, take up space. Take up space in meetings, be present, and engage. Speak up. And this is something I've known ever since I was a kid. I would just devise and want to make the most perfect thought before I delivered it in school or in a meeting or at university. The conversation would have gone 10 minutes past my perfect thought, which is too late to deliver, and then I've said nothing. And yet in that time, I've noted my male colleagues would have delivered about 20 half-baked thoughts. And so I say to my juniors, and especially the female juniors, speak up. Just deliver it, have the thought, even preface it to say, I have not yet, fully developed this, but this is what I think. So you take up the space, you speak. And in the words of Sheryl Sandberg, and I know it's become a bit cliched and it's leaning in, but it's very much that, be there, be present. But I say it in the end, talking and looping back to difference, do it in your own way. And I believe in the authenticity of each of us and each of us developing our own authentic leadership style. Mark spoke about Formula One. And Mark, I said I was smaller. I didn't say I wasn't as fit. We'll talk about that separately. But you need to lean in. If the men want to talk about breastfeeding, if the women want to talk about Formula One, we need to make the spaces comfortable. And that goes to, I think, the Marilyn Monroe, Ella Fitzgerald, that space needs to be created. And men need to be engaged, and senior female and men leadership engaged to make the space a bit safer so that I believe women can do those three things: take up the space, speak up, lean in, deliver the half-baked thought. It's more baked than you think it is.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Oprah Winfrey once said, especially from, women, do it afraid. If you have to ask a question where it's full of conference, don't think about it. Just do it afraid. Just put your hand up, even if it's a silly question. The more you put your hand up and you are able to ask questions, they'll become a little bit better and you gain a lot more confidence. So, and then also the idea that I think we need to be able to sprinkle our presence, as Kollega has said, in the boardroom. If you have to put your hand up for any committees or whatever, even if you may not understand, you read up about it and you put your hand up. And that's the only way we can get into these rooms that may originally not have been including us, is by we'll get it wrong at the beginning, but we will eventually get it right. Mark, to you, the same question.
No, thank you. Yeah, I do get nervous when you're advising all these young people to speak a lot, because I've been in these meetings when you want a simple discussion on how we're going to improve something or do something, and you get all these young people. You can see they just want their voice to be heard, and they start speaking. So I said, this is a quick meeting. We just want to decide this. You don't have to come up with all your ideas now. And then I don't invite you to the next meeting so I can move quicker. No, I do agree with you. Speak up, make your presence known, but only on a foundation of, good knowledge, thought out plans, proposals. So therefore, I would go back to the root. And it's probably advice good for men, good for women, good for anyone. You must make sure you develop a solid skill set and expertise that allows you to speak and gets people to listen. Then once you have that solid skill set and expertise, and more so because you're coming from a disadvantaged area where someone might not listen to you, so you need to make sure, damn sure, your skill set is of the best, and that'll come through. And then you match that with confidence and assertiveness, and then you can move through. And then you build your supportive network. Make sure you have this network. You'll have linked to different people of ages, genders, races, all over. Utilize that to get to highlight and show off your solid skill set. Look out. I think you said, you volunteer. Seek out these leadership opportunities. Volunteer for it. Put your hand up. That's how anyone gets ahead. You need to do it more so. But again, don't put your hand up if you're going to make a big mess of it, because that'll be the last time you ever get chosen. So remember, skill set, your actual expertise does count. Advocate for yourself. Embrace the challenges. There'll be many setbacks. Don't get broken by them. It's normal. Stand up. Go again. Develop your resilience. Address the biasness in society proactively, but be careful. It is a warning. Don't fight the system. The system is the system. You can change the system, but don't fight. If you fight, there's a risk that you do get thrown out or marginalized, because people don't want that conflict blatantly in front of them. I think as you mentioned, Nomsa, when you are coaching your friend in their unconscious bias sometimes, don't start a fight. It's friendly guidance. Work within to change, and then make sure you are the best and you'll move forward. Stay resilient, stay persistent, continuously learn, adapt, change. And then remember, as was alluded to earlier, there are many that have gone before you. You are also in this journey. So lead by example. You will open up doors for others as well as you go on. And I think that'll be a good foundation for any of our young female colleagues to follow.
Well, I think we're almost running out of time. Well, thank you very much. I think it's been a very exciting conversation that we've had, starting up with Kollega and the statistics and research, going on to practical, role modeling from Pralisha, and then Mark from a male perspective. And we intend to have these leadership leadership webinars to try and sort of speak about other issues that are relevant to women getting ahead. So thank you very much, all of you, for really putting your hand up to attending to this interrogation by me. And thank you very much. I don't know if there's any last words that you'd like to say. Anyone out there? Colleague
Yeah,
Felicia?
Nomsa, just the last word from me. And
Mhm.
I think we need to recognize our advocates. And I must say at Tungela, July, Ndlovu, they discussed about gender violence. And if I can just quote something from him, it says, if he had asked me years earlier to have a team led by a woman underground, I would have laughed. It's a patriarchal mindset that needs to be defeated. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, all, and looking forward to having this conversation with you again soon.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
And
you,
have
Nomsa. Yeah,
have a great afternoon.
thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.